Friends, welcome to our last session. We have walked through a lot of material. We have talked about connection and really finding our true connection to the true King, right? We've talked about shame and knowing who we are as beloved ones of the Most High. We've talked about Sabbath and our need, how we're just starved for rest, right? Our need to Sabbath. We've talked about justice and the place in the kingdom that it has, our identity, and oh man, I'm excited to talk about anxiety, but also peace and shalom and wholeness. That's where we're landing right now. So here's the thing. When I first sent my firstborn son on a bus when he was in the first grade, it was really something. I watched him walk up those stairs, find his little seat, and he had his cute little smile, but he was a little bit nervous, and I was super nervous, but I was trying not to show it. And then that big yellow container took him away to the school for 6 hours. That was a really long time. He had been under my care most of the days, and it was a huge deal for me. And I remember I had this choice. As I was walking back from the bus stop to my house, I thought, how do I do this? I can either stay present where I am, or I can worry about him, and my brain can be over there thinking about what's happening to him, who's saying what to him. I'm like, I don't know. Will he be able to find a new friend? Will he get bullied? Will he be safe? Like all of those anxious thoughts that I had to think, how do I do this? How do I stay present and not feel like I'm torn in two places? Like I'm at my job doing the work that I need to be doing, but my mind is somewhere else. The word for anxiety in the Greek in the Bible is to be torn apart, to be shredded. Almost this idea of being split in some different places, as if you're in one spot, but you're thinking about what's happening over there, or you're in one spot and you're thinking about the past, or you're worrying about the future, but you're definitely not whole. You don't have peace. You don't have shalom, right? You're torn in two places. So we've got to talk about this. Let's talk about anxiety and then come into that place of peace, because I think we're really starved to live integrated lives. If anxiety is to be disintegrated, we're looking for integration, for wholeness, for peace. So there's one simple verse that I keep coming back to because it just really feeds my soul when it comes to peace and the anxiety that we wrestle with on a daily basis, right? This verse is really sweet. It's Peter, and he's writing to people who are shepherding others. They're shepherding churches, little house churches, and it's 1 Peter 5:7. And this is what it says. Cast your anxiety on him, on Jesus, because he cares for you. Now, some versions say, give your anxiety or give your cares to God because he cares for you. So what is it? Is it give? Is it cast? Like I wanted to look it up. I was like, what's the original word here? Because I love a good word study. And what I found was the original word in the Greek is eparipto, right? Eparipto. Okay, this is what it means. Listen to this definition. It's so good. It is the flinging of a garment, a bag, or excess weight off the shoulders of a traveler and onto the back of some other beast, such as a donkey, a camel, or a horse. Listen, that's what God asks us to do, to cast, to give, to fling, to take that excess weight as we travel through our day and to put it on God's strong back. What a description. That's the word. The other place we find eparipto is in Luke 19:35, when it's describing actually Jesus on a colt. It says this, and they brought the colt to Jesus, and they cast their garments upon the colt, and then they set Jesus right on there. They're putting their garments on top of this colt that can carry the weight of even a grown man, of Jesus, right? So in this verse, in 1 Peter 5:7, Peter gives us one job. He says, give, cast, fling it on to the Lord, which is really beautiful. Like, that's something that I think, okay, I want to practice doing that. And I would practice putting it on the back of my strong and able God. Even I think of Psalm 65 that says, our God is strong and he is mighty. So Peter is calling us to fling to cast, to eparipto our heavy burdens on God. Those burdens, that anxiety that's kind of tearing us and shredding us and not making us present, onto him. But the question is, how do I do this? Like, how do I actually practice flinging my cares to God? Before we get to the how, I want to answer why. Why can we give our worries and our anxieties to God? Well, Peter answers it. He answers it right here. It says, because God cares for us. I want to look at this Greek word. One more word for you here. This word care, like, what does that mean? In the Greek, the word care is mele. And here's the definition of mele. It is to be concerned, to notice, or to give painful and meticulous attention to. That's how God feels about us. He cares for us. He melees us. He pays meticulous attention to us. Friend, don't let the enemy tell you that your worries or your cares are too insignificant, they're too small, or they're too stupid for God to care about, because he pays meticulous attention to everything that is worrying you. So Peter's very deliberate about the words he uses in 1 Peter 5:7. He wants us to know our God is strong and able, like a camel or a donkey or a horse that can carry our weight, but also he's tender and attentive because he notices us. He cares for us. He's paying meticulous attention to what we are caring about. Isn't that beautiful? We have a strong and tender God. So here's the thing. How do I do this? How do I find peace? How do I practice this verse and stay present and integrated and whole and have shalom? Well, I love the way that James Bryan Smith talks about this in his book series, and I kind of adapted a few of his thoughts. He talks about this process of putting our anxiety on God. And it's a journaling exercise. I have to tell you, I have been practicing this for the last 2 months, and I am taking way more peace and way less anxiety into my day as I start my day with this. So I put about 10 or 15 minutes aside in my morning, and I take out my journal and I write out every single thing I can think of that is bringing me anxiety. What am I worried about? What am I trying to control? List it all, name it all. So I write it all down. That's the first thing. And then I need to look at that list and think, what can I do to remedy this situation? Is there anything that I can do? Because C.S. Lewis says that if you have weeds in your garden, don't just pray about your weeds. Pull them up. Like, you have agency, you have influence, you have some control, right? So I'm gonna write down and make a plan. Okay, do I need to call the doctor? Do I need to call my mom and ask for advice? Should I sit in silence and ask God to give me a word or speak to me? Like, what can I do within my control with these things? And then look at that list and think, the rest that I cannot control, it's way out of my circle of control, I write a very specific prayer, surrendering those things to God and saying, God, I surrender. I can't control. I have to let go. I'm going to fling them onto your back, and I'm going to trust that you've got it. Now, here's what's so fun about this exercise. So let's say you do it for 30 days in a row. When you look back the day before and the day before that, you are starting to collect evidence of how God showed up with everything you're anxious about. You can see, how did he answer that prayer? What is he doing? You're collecting this beautiful evidence of the goodness of God. And so when you start to get anxious, you can be like, nope, I've got all this past goodness that I'm seeing. Now, a word about this. Sometimes I think, well, what is actually in my control? All right, things that you can control when you're looking at your anxiety list and things you can do. You control your words, your actions, how you treat others, whether or not you follow the rules, how you handle your feelings, how you take care of yourself, and your decisions. Things out of your control that you need to surrender and accept that they're out of your control, right? They are things like this: what other people do, what other people say, things from the past, how other people feel, other people's choices, and the weather. I think it's a really helpful list to be like, okay, here's what I can do, here's what I can't. I've got to surrender, I've got to accept. Here's one of my most favorite prayers when it comes to this. It's the serenity prayer. And I have a few friends who are in recovery, and they pray this every day because they know the anxiety that rises up when they want to control things, and they know peace. And one of the ways they know peace is this prayer, and it's a serenity prayer that is this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Friends, I have loved being on this journey with you. You have done an amazing job walking these last 6 weeks as we've talked about coming to Christ's table and being fulfilled and nourished and whole and free. And my prayer for you has been that God would meet you in places that you haven't seen him before. I just want to pray and end our time with this blessing from Numbers chapter 6 over you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. May you continue to let God lead you out of starvation and into fulfillment, away from the fake stuff and to the fresh stuff at his table, because he wants to restore you, he wants to nourish you, and most of all, he just wants to be with you. I'm so glad you joined me at my table.